Owning a home in Wichita, Kansas. I want to give you 5 insights of what it's like to own a home here and some things that you may or may not think of from a local cultural knowledge from living here my whole life and understanding houses and the environment and what it's like here on everything. So before we get into all that, please like, comment, subscribe, share. It really helps this channel grow to keep the local guys, the little guys, going instead of some of these bigger influencers that are just there for clicks and attention. We're there to help serve the community. We're a part of the community. We're local, and we appreciate your help. Whether you buy a house with us or not, just to get those like, comment, subscribe, share, to get us exposure and everything out there to help people understand Wichita, what it's like, and owning a home here on everything is what I'm going to get into specifically. So the first one I'm going to go over is that we have basements and foundations here, and some people may not be used to this if you're either not from here or never really owned a house before, just what to maintain, what to look for, what to consider on all of that. And the reason that's important is a few different reasons, really. I mean, we do have severe weather here and the potential for tornadoes, and so people want a basement or a storm shelter of sorts. So that's definitely a necessity if you're going to be in Kansas. And a lot of our houses do have basements, foundations, storm cellars, things of that nature protect you from those type of things. But that can cause problems potentially if they fail, if they leak, and some of the things that go around that. Like if you've never heard of a sump pump before or seen one or had one, we have those pretty regularly around here. Which actually brings me to another point about sump pumps is that you need to have a backup system for your sump pump, because if your sump pump fails, you could have water coming in from the system that's supposed to prevent it. But if it's not working and your power goes out and electricity or sump pump fails, you either need to have a battery backup or a water powered system, so that in the event like of a heavy storm, a thunderstorm, electricity goes out, it's raining heavy, your sump pump can back up and actually flood your basement because it doesn't have power running to it. So it's not kicking the water out of your foundation like it's supposed to. So the solution to that is either a battery backup, as long as the battery's charged. That's one thing about those battery backups, or a water powered system that can work off of power or off of water instead of electricity to power the water out of your house. Although a lot of times I know those can be slow and don't entirely work. So it's just something to be aware of, is that in Kansas, we have real hard clay soils. So it doesn't really give the water anywhere to go. And when you have a foundation system, like if you picture a concrete box like this, you have French drains underneath all of your foundations. In a newer, more modern built house, some of the older houses don't have this. You have French drains that takes your concrete box, your clay soil on the outside doesn't really absorb water. The water goes in between your foundation and the clay soils, and it does a couple things. One, it goes through the French drains to your sump pump and gets kicked out away from the house. Or two, it sits there in between your foundation and the clay soil, and it freezes and thaws. So as it freezes and thaws, ice expands when the water freezes, and when it does that, it starts to push your foundation in like this. So your walls actually start to lean in, and that's where you see cracks, where water can also get through those cracks, and you also see movement at the foundation of everything. The solution to all this is having good drainage away from your house. So that way you make sure the soil, the dirt sheds the water away from your foundation. So if you have low spots around your house, you want to look for that. If you're looking to buy a house, you want to look for low spots. It's not necessarily a reason not to buy a house or that it's a problem. It's just that it's a simple $50-$100 fix of bringing in dirt around your foundation in order to get water to shed away from your house. Same thing with your gutters and downspouts. A lot of those areas are neglected or missed if you don't look at houses, with this eye. Whether you own one now or you're looking to own one in Kansas, this is something to know about, is that our basements and foundations are good for protection from tornadoes, but they can also create problems that you have to maintain and be aware of when it comes to, water freezing and thawing in between the foundation, they potentially leaking, your sump pump not working. These are all the things you need to get ready for when it comes to owning a home in Wichita. Whether you've owned a home or not, this is helpful. If you're looking to own a home, this should be helpful on everything, because it's not just about how pretty it is and how much you like it. It's maintaining it, taking care of it. And I'm starting to see that, less and less people are aware or take care of and maintain their house that they own here in Wichita. So basements and foundations, having good water drainage away from the house, that's a critical key one. that is honestly fairly simple and easy to take care of, but most people neglect until it becomes a $5, $10, $20,000 problem with their foundation wall that's leaning in and really being an issue. And in a lot of ways, when it comes time to sell the house, we have to deal with that. That's a pretty significant hurdle to get around to get your home sold when it has foundation problems. So maintain it, own it well, buy it right. You know, it has to go with a lot of these things when it comes to owning a home in Wichita. Second one is what I will talk about is roofs, hail, and insurance around all that. So we have a lot of roofs get replaced in Wichita. We'll put it that way. And a lot of it comes from hailstorms, severe weather, things like that. And your insurance provider is looking at, in Wichita, Kansas specifically, basically like, how soon am I going to have to replace your roof? That's when you look at, insurance rates vary widely based on how old your roof is. And we've been seeing this lately with certain companies. I'm not going to name any names, starting to deny policies, not writing out coverage on claims for roofs. This is a lot of the work I used to do in construction, was roof, siding, and windows insurance work, especially around here, just because we get a lot of that severe weather, and it can be needed, very highly needed from time to time when we get a big storm that comes through on everything. I got great roofers, great contractor connections. So if you need help with that, whether you buy or sell a house with me or not, just let me know. I'm a resource for you for knowledge and connections with all of that. But roofs, hail, and insurance is a big deal here in Kansas, because a lot of times your roof gets replaced by insurance when there's a hailstorm, as long as you can justify enough hail hits in a certain area. And to give you an idea of how that process works, typically, not always, I'll help you navigate through each situation, whether you're a client or not. The whole idea is to try to build goodwill with you to eventually become a client, or if you are a client, this is what I provide as a service, as an agent, beyond just knowing how to write a contract and do your standard typical procedures on everything. Is that I know how to work the insurance system very well as a previous contractor, how to use this knowledge and information, to your benefit, on either side of the equation, no matter which way it works. So typically, if you have enough hail on your roof, or you feel like it's old or there's something wrong with it, you will file a claim with your insurance company. They will send out an adjuster. It's best practice to have a roofer there with them to help evaluate it, because these adjusters don't entirely know construction or housing. They just kind of know how to follow the process that the insurance company has given them. And you want to make sure the adjuster is there meeting a roofer who is actually a construction expert that knows how to really evaluate and point out everything that the adjuster needs to assess and see on it all. And a lot of times, as these roofers make connections with the adjusters, they can, one, make sure you get enough money for insurance, and two, make sure they're covering everything that is actually damaged and what your policy is about. And hopefully you have a recoverable cash value policy, because going an actual cash value policy route is a really cheap way to do it, but you're really lacking in coverage. And when it comes time to replace your roof, you're going to be wishing you had a recoverable cash value policy, because most times you don't have enough money to replace the roof from what insurance is covered if you only have an actual cash value policy. Any of that stuff you have questions on, get with whoever your insurance broker, agent, provider is, and discuss with them what your coverage policy is. And then the other piece of it is the deductible. A lot of times, if insurance has given enough spread for money for replacing the roof or siding or windows or whatever you have a claim on, a lot of times roofing companies can work with you on the deductible. Sometimes you have to pay it all. Sometimes you can pay half. Sometimes you don't have to pay any of it. I can't speak one way for sure on every single situation. I tend to avoid making blanket statements, because usually everybody's situation and case is unique, but I can give you an idea from past experience of how these get handled and what goes on with it all. But it's just important that you have a good quality insurance carrier and roofer that you can connect with. I have those if you need them as a resource. But that's a big thing about Kansas and owning a home here in Wichita, is that a lot of our roofs get replaced by insurance from hail. And it's something to consider when it comes to buying a house, owning a house, going through that process, because it surprises me how many people have never filed a claim with their insurance or never went through any of that process for their house, when that's exactly what your house insurance is for. It's there to help cover all of these major systems, like your roof, like your siding, like your windows, anything major that's above and beyond your deductible, whether it's a 500, 1,000, 1,500 deductible. I'm not sure what your deductible is. My personal piece of advice on that is, don't have too high of a deductible that's a 2,500 or $5,000 deductible, so that your monthly premium could be lower. But then when it comes time to file a claim, which is very often, in Kansas that we have hailstorms and claims that need to be paid out, then you're having to cough up money for the difference, or you're having to pay in some money for that. So you really didn't save much in that situation. You just didn't have to pay as much per month. But again, that's up to you and your personal consideration. Just know that all of that has to go into owning a home when it comes to having a roof and hail and all the insurance things that go on around that. Right now, currently, as I'm recording this video, insurance is going through a lot of changes, upheavals, everything's going with it, just because of the market and the economy and everything else with it. So it's definitely a fun situation to navigate. But from my past experience of constructions, dealing with insurance and real estate, like I have a pretty good amount of know-how and wherewithal and ability to help you navigate those situations if you run into them. The third one that I'm going to put out there about owning a home in Wichita is that you have all seasons to consider when you're here. So we go through every range of every season, from spring to summer to fall to winter. We go anywhere from -10 degrees all the way to 110 degrees is in the summer. And so you have to take into account the temperature differences, the weather changes, and how much that provides an additional wear and tear on your house, more so than other certain parts of the country, where it's like, if you can expect to be cold all the time, that's one thing. You can expect to be hot all the time, that's one thing. But since we have so much change back and forth, that puts a lot of extra stress on like your AC units, your furnace system, your windows, your roof, your paint, your siding. All of these building systems that we have aren't really meant to deal with that much variation in weather changes and temperature changes. So it's something to take into account with owning a home in Wichita, Kansas, is that you have every single season to consider in a wide range of it all, not just for yourself personally, but for your house. So obviously that's going to put, more wear and tear on your paint, more wear and tear on your windows, more wear and tear on your siding. And so it is one thing to maintain about your house, is that you have all seasons to consider. Same thing with like your spigots and your well and your sprinkler system. You need to winterize your sprinkler system to blow out all the water out of it so it doesn't freeze and cause a huge problem with that. Same thing with a lot of your spigots around your home. You don't want to leave them open so they don't freeze and burst. Same things with maintaining like enough heat in your home, so that if any exterior pipes are close to the exterior walls, they could have the potential to freeze and burst. So there's just a lot of these things that you need to consider, with Wichita having so many seasons. Also, depending on where you keep your air conditioning, if you're one of those crazies that likes it at 65 degrees all the time, and it's 110 degrees out, your AC is going to be working way harder than, a lot of other places, where if it's 80 degrees all the time, that's a different story. But if it's 110 outside and you want it 65 inside and you're working the hell out of the air conditioner, don't be surprised if it gives out, because of how much extra stress you're putting on it. And that's where I highly recommend home warranties and multi-year coverage plans on home warranties. Choice Home Warranty seems to be one of the best ones that I've seen to provide coverage and payouts and all that. And how those typically work is you pay like $660 a year on them. A lot of times we get them negotiated into the real estate contracts we do. And then it's a $75 service fee. And then they cover anything above and beyond that $75 service fee, which you're going to have to pay a $75 service fee most of the time anyway, to have a plumber, electrician, HVAC guy come out to even come to your house to service the AC, the plumbing, electricity, whatever. But then it's like, once they come out, the warranty covers anything above that. And usually over the course of a year, it's way more than $660. So they're worth it. And yeah, they're a little bit of a hassle to go through, but so is going through a normal traditional process too. So you kind of got to weigh the savings and the hassle with what's available and what's an option. So that's where we really recommend home warranties, and not just getting one in the transaction, like continuing them after the fact. Because usually if something's going to go out in your house, it's within that first year of you changing use of the systems compared to the other previous owner on everything. And I don't get paid anything to promote warranties or sell them or any of that kind of stuff. I'm really mainly just looking out for my homeowners long term, to make sure that they're not having their house be a money pit, or that it kind of helps protect their bottom line and the savings that come with it. So home warranties are an insurance like anything else. And insurances are worth it. You just got to work the system. You got to work the home warranties and you got to work your home insurance. So there's 2 tips and tricks about working them and owning a home in Wichita. I'm sure there's more things I could go into that I'm not thinking about right now, other than, the all seasons to consider piece. But then the fourth one that I had written down here was going over taxes, HOAs, and specials in Kansas. So that's one thing that goes with owning a home in Wichita, Kansas, is that we have a decent amount of taxes compared to other states around us, you know, like Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri and Nebraska, I'm not too familiar with, but I want to say they're higher. Like, we have a good amount of taxes in Wichita, Kansas, but we also have some of the best roads I've seen. And you'll know this if you've ever driven through Oklahoma or Texas and Missouri. You know, you can tell, like, right when you cross the borderline of the roads start to get a lot more potholy and not quite so well maintained. That is one thing about Wichita and Kansas that I think if you're from here, we kind of take for granted, or as a given, is our road quality. Is that we do have comparatively really good roads to a lot of the other areas around here. And it seems like we're always freaking fixing them and working on them, to be honest with you. And if you're from here, you'll definitely back me up on that, is that it seems like there's always road construction going on because we're always improving and making them better. And that's where your taxes are going to, is to road construction, you know, and road improvement, road maintenance, all the things that go with that. Same thing with schools. We have really good quality schools around here. You know, for the amount of education for what you're paying taxes, it's pretty exceptional with that. But it is one thing to take into account, is that Kansas and Wichita does have a little bit higher taxes than some of the other, you know, regions or options around us. Same thing with, we have HOAs around here pretty significantly. Some of them are like neighborhood ran, just local people that got together to enforce the ordinance and covenants around there, just to make sure there's no crazy stuff going on in your neighborhood. But then some of them can be third party managed, where it's a lot more of like a corporate situation with people patrolling the neighborhood and, you know, looking to write fines type of thing. And then there are places that have no HOAs at all. So that's something to take into account when you're owning a home in Wichita, and you're the long-term ongoing situations you might be dealing with, you know, whether good or bad, what it looks like to own a home in Wichita. There's also special taxes in Wichita, Kansas, and usually these go with new developments and new builds, and they're not always reflected in the sale price of the home. So if you have a 350 retail home that's existing compared to a 350 new build home, you know, one thing that's not taken into account for the overall pricing or your monthly payment is this 350 retail home that doesn't have special taxes is going to have a different monthly payment and tax structure than this $350,000 new build home that does have special taxes. And usually how these special taxes work, they can be an allotment per lot on each house that's like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 that's paid out in the form of a special tax. And let's say it's 30 grand as an example, that has to be paid out over the course of 15, 20, 25 years. And then they have a yearly assessment of like $1,600 a year that you have to add into what the cost of your monthly payment and the cost of your house is. Now that can get rolled into your escrow and your lump sum payment, but when you look at purchase price at 350 new build and 350 retail, that's one thing you have to take into account, is the special taxes that go with that, that has to do with your monthly payment. And those special taxes go towards like the roads in the new development, the sidewalks, the street lights, the pool, the amenities, all the different features that go with development. And that's assessed as a special tax that's subsidized through the city, and it's usually lower than what your interest rate's going to be. So it can be like a 2.5%, 3% tax. So that way the developers can get the roads in there. And then that way you as a homeowner can benefit from those developments that are put in, but it's not just throwing it into a $380,000 new build price. Instead it's 350 with 30 grand in special tax, but it is something that you need to take into account. That's not always like put out there or reflected in the purchase price of the home with everything. So that's something you got to take into account and consider when you're owning a home in Wichita, is that you have those special taxes. And now to give you an idea too, that 30 grand, you know, that's paid off is 1,600 a year. Once 30 grand's paid off, that goes away. So when you see some of these houses or some of these situations where it says like low specials, very little specials left, or no specials, you realize how big of a deal that is, because it's an additional cost, an additional tax that either isn't there or is almost gone. It makes a pretty significant difference when you're buying a newer built home on everything, either brand new build or soon to be new. You start to see them drop off, like I was saying, at the 10, 15, 20-year mark. Just depends on how long they assess those special taxes to be out there like that. So that's taxes, HOA, and specials. And the last one, this one's kind of funny, but it's true. Number 5 is that lawns are a big deal around here. You know, and I think most people that have never owned a home before, or they're not from here, is the amount of, you know, work and maintenance and, things that go into maintaining a quality lawn. And part of that is we have all seasons to consider. So to keep a lawn going with all seasons all year round does make it harder, but also it is a big deal to a lot of people around here is having a nice lawn, having a well cared for lawn. And there's different levels of that depending on the neighborhood, the location, and what your neighbors are doing and everything else around it. As far as like what level of lawn care you need or is appropriate, so each house we can assess differently. But I do want you to consider that owning a home in Wichita, lawns are a big deal, and taking care of them can be a big deal, because some of the higher end neighborhoods are the ones that have nicer lawns, and it's like you can spend a small fortune on water, fertilizing, seeding, sod, landscaping, all the things that go with lawns. And I've seen them make a pretty significant difference in Wichita on the resellability of your house. Now it's hard to quantify that, but I do know from a buyer desirability standpoint, it does make a difference of how nice the lawn is and how well maintained the lawn is. Because some people might look at a house and the lawn is crap and they're like, I'm gonna have to spend $5,000, $10,000 to get this thing nice again. And it's a big consideration for a lot of people around here, is how nice the lawn is on everything. So something to take into account if you're going to own a home or you own a home in Wichita. Taking care of and maintaining your lawn is important, is a big deal. And it's why so many people make a big deal about, like, does it have a well? Does it have a sprinkler system? Because both of those two things have a big determinant on how easy it's going to be to take care of a lawn or maintain a lawn. But I'm just telling you that owning a home in Wichita, like, you got to consider the lawn, and the lawn is a big deal around here. So that's 5 things that I have around owning a home in Wichita, Kansas. I'm sure there's more. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it in the comments down below. But hopefully that kind of gives you some cultural local insight to what owning a home in Wichita is like, or just owning a home in general. Appreciate you watching as always. Check out some of my other videos if you want to learn about real estate, lifestyle, Wichita, all the things come with that. Like, comment, subscribe, share. If you want to give me a call, I love talking about this stuff. If you're actually looking to buy and sell and do something, that's one disclaimer on that. And we'll talk with you later. Hopefully talk to you soon. See ya.